Hello, this is Jedi Master Daniel 96, and in this video we'll be going over some potential leaked stuff from Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, and this stuff comes from like MakingStarWars.net, who's a very credible source, and I got this from the Instagram page of Bespin Bulletin, which I will link this down below for you to check out. And I'm going to read this off. And if you want to go into this movie fresh with speculation, and if you are watching this video, I would say this stuff could be true, but I would say take it with a grain of salt, and Making Star Wars is a very credible source, but let's begin, shall we? And first thing on a bullet point says, at Galaxy's Edge, Jason says that he saw Rey get caught by stormtroopers. Then a First Order officer orders her to be freed, saying the command comes from them, which is implied to be Kylo Ren. Jason said, which this ties into things he heard about 9. And then the second bullet point says, Jason mentions that in an article before he thought the Wayfinder might be the MacGuffin, but apparently not. It's tied to it. The Wayfinder leads to the Sith fleet, which leads to Palpatine. He's heard that the Wayfinder does some odd things, like on Basana, it makes the sand give away. Jason speculates that the Wayfinder takes Kylo on his path for what he needs to do. Speculates that the Wayfinder device is what allows the First Order to find the Sith Trooper fleet, and that fleet then goes to bring Palpatine back. Kylo Ren thinks the Sith fleet and the Knights of Ren will only answer to him. And I also did speculate on my podcast, The First Order Holocast, about, that leaked about the Wayfinder thing with Kylo Ren and the Sith fleet and all that on my podcast, which you can go check out. And you can also follow my podcast on Facebook, The First Order Holocast, and on Twitter at First Order Holo, and on Instagram at The First Order _Holo, which you can check out. And then you can check out my podcast on Anchor and Spotify. And that's just a little side note there. And it was pretty much in my latest episode. And back to the topic. And says he speculated for a long time that Kylo defects to the good guy's side, but never knew why, but speculates further, thinking the Sith fleet going after Palpatine is the reason. And that's pretty much the first 3 bullet points. And moving on to the next, says speculates that the ship involved in the zero gravity fight that was filmed at Cardaton Sheds was one of the Sith fleet Star Destroyers. Doesn't know if they're red. And then the next bullet point is wonders if the heroes end up taking down the ship into that area. So I guess, our heroes will take down one of the ships. And next bullet point is thinks the first time he heard about the Red Stormtroopers was when 9 was Colin Trevorrow's film, with the reason they were red so that it was obvious who was fighting who when they took on the white stormtroopers, but a source told him that it doesn't happen in The Rise of Skywalker. But I kind of did speculate on my podcast about the First Order and the Sith fleet are in a little civil war, which I had speculated that on my podcast in a few episodes, and that's just a little side note there. And then another thing, Jason says when Kylo Ren speaks with the Oracle that the Oracle comments on having an affinity for Rey. And then the next bullet point says Jason says that he couldn't get any extra verification from anybody to deny or confirm the Sith Fleet Star Destroyers having Death Star tech. And I also talked about the Death Star tech with the Sith Fleet, which we have been getting on my podcast as well. And moving on to the next bullet point, believes we're getting the Mandalorian trailer at D23, hasn't heard anything about episode 9, knows there was a Rise of Skywalker behind the scenes video shown previously, and a source said the behind the scenes reel feels like a Rogue One movie. A lot of it has to do with the jungle sets, but has no idea if anything will be shown at D23, as the focus seems to be the Mandalorian. And the next bullet point thinks Kerry Russell filmed a scene with Mark Hamill, but is very unsure. So a possible scene with Kerry Russell and Mark Hamill, so it looks like maybe in a flashback that Zoe Bliss and Luke Skywalker have had a past together. And also on my latest episode of the podcast, I did speculate that Kerry Russell's character Zoe Bliss could be a new version of Mara Jade, and that's just one of my speculations. And who knows what he thinks is true or not, which, I mean, anything is possible. And Jason thinks that the audience won't know that Zoe is a good guy to begin with. So, I mean, she is pretty much like a masked scoundrel kind of character from the Vanity Fair article, like, from the Vanity Fair magazine. And pretty much, I think, I feel like Zoe Bliss could be like some kind of anti-hero. And so she could be along the lines of that. And the next bullet point is cover his speculation post on Zoe. Stands by that he's heard Rey comments on Zoe's ship being familiar, and I have speculated about Rey having somewhat of a connection to Zoe Bliss in some capacity. Like, could Zoe Bliss be Rey's mom or Rey's aunt or whoever, or probably the person who left her on Jakku? And also the next bullet point says that when Abrams took over 9, one thing that changed was having the whole group together. And another thing, this is where it also gets interesting, stands by Lando telling Finn and Poe something really big about Rey's past. He previously mentioned this when he discussed the Rey Solo rumor, stands by this moment being accurate, which, who knows, maybe Abrams does indeed make Rey a Solo, and, I mean, Lando is Han's best friend, so maybe he knows about Rey in that, and maybe Kylo Ren was indeed lying to Rey, and anything is possible there. And heard Lando, and also the other thing is, heard Lando's introduction is very coincidental and dopey like The Force Awakens. And the next bullet point, which is the last one, is regarding Kevin Smith's recent quote. He says people who knows that know the last shot doesn't really get Kevin's quote. Speculates that maybe what Smith saw isn't the final shot, but from the third act. Jason speculates that based off his quote, Kevin must have seen an original trilogy thing, which could be the Lars homestead, and I think it's possible we do revisit Tatooine, because that's one of the planets, where it all began, and it would be cool to revisit the Lars homestead in The Rise of Skywalker to tie all the trilogies together. And that is pretty much all these potential leaks for Star Wars Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, and I will link the Instagram post in the description down below, and I will also link my podcast down below, the First Order Holocast, and I hope you found these leaks pretty interesting, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel, and comment what you think of these leaks down below. Do you believe these leaks could be true, or could they be false, or anything? And I'll see you guys next time with another video. Bye.